All right, welcome to the deep dive, everybody. Today we're going way back to explore one of history's most fascinating civilizations,
Yeah.
the Maya.
Yep.
And we're going to really get into, just what made them so, influential and successful. And also, we'll look at
Right.
their decline. But they, thrived for centuries across a huge area, what we now call southern Mexico and Guatemala, Belize, parts of Honduras and El Salvador. And they built this incredibly sophisticated culture that, well, continues to kind of capture our imagination.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's so amazing about the Maya is just, their achievements are just they're so impressive and they're so enduring. And even today when you visit their sites, it's just, you really get a sense of
Yeah.
just how powerful the civilization was
Yeah.
and how innovative.
Exactly. And we're going to get into, all those amazing accomplishments today, the pyramids and the astronomy and their writing. But our real mission here is to understand what makes them so relevant to us, even now. Why are we still so drawn to them? Yeah,
What can we learn from them?
absolutely.
So let's start with the basics. Everyone's heard of the Maya, right? The pyramids, the jungles, the whole mystique.
Yeah.
But what were some of their most impressive achievements? The stuff that really sets them apart from other ancient civilizations.
Oh, I mean, you hit on one right there, the pyramids. I mean, these are huge structures that are just they're incredible feats of engineering, and they were built, without modern tools. I mean, it's mind-boggling how they were able to do that.
Yeah, and then you have the astronomy. I mean,
Yes.
their knowledge of the stars was just so advanced.
Yeah.
And they had this really intricate calendar system.
Right. Right. Which is something that, a lot of people have kind of a misunderstanding of.
Right, with the whole 2012 thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But their calendar was really a testament to their understanding of time and cycles and celestial movements. It was really quite sophisticated. Okay, so before we jump into the calendar, let's talk about the Maya zero. Because this is something that, it's a big deal. I mean, they developed the concept of zero independently, which is just incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, and it's something that really sets them apart from a lot of other ancient civilizations.
Right, like the Greeks and Romans.
Exactly.
They didn't have a concept of zero. And so their math, it was more limited in a way.
Well, it was, because the zero, it's a placeholder, but it's also this concept of nothing, right? And it allows for more complex calculations, for place value systems, and it really changed the way they could think about numbers and do math.
Yeah. It's like they were playing on hard mode or something.
Right.
And they still came up with this incredibly advanced system. Okay, so now let's talk about their society. They weren't a unified empire, right?
Yeah. No. They were organized into these powerful city-states, kind of like ancient Greece in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Each city-state had its own ruler, its own territory, its own kind of sphere of influence. And there was a lot of interaction between them. Trade, alliances, sometimes conflict and warfare. It was a very dynamic and complex political landscape.
So you've got these big cities like Tikal,
Right.
Capan, Palenque,
Yeah.
and they're all kind of vying for power and influence.
Yeah.
So who was in charge in these city-states?
Well, at the top you had the divine king.
The divine king. Okay, so more than just a regular king.
Yeah, much more. I mean, for the Maya, kingship wasn't just about political power. It was also deeply spiritual. They believed that the king was a mediator between the human world and the divine world.
So like a god king almost.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
They were seen as having this direct connection to the gods, and they were responsible for performing rituals, maintaining cosmic order, ensuring the success of the crops, things like that.
It sounds like a pretty sweet gig, except maybe when things went wrong.
Yeah, I imagine the pressure was pretty intense.
So these divine kings lived in these amazing cities, these grand urban centers, but they didn't have metal tools or the wheel.
Right.
How did they build all this stuff? I mean, we're talking about massive pyramids, palaces, ball courts.
It's incredible, isn't it? I mean,
Mm.
their engineering skills were just phenomenal. They had a deep understanding of their materials, of how to quarry and transport these huge stone blocks, and how to fit them together with incredible precision.
And they did it all without, cranes or bulldozers or any of the things that we would use today.
Yeah, it really makes you appreciate the ingenuity and the sheer manpower that must have gone into it.
And you mentioned precision. Are there any particular examples that really stand out, like buildings that just blow your mind in terms of how they were designed and constructed?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, take the Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque. Not only is it a beautiful structure, with all these intricate carvings that tell the story of their rulers and their mythology. But it also houses the tomb of one of the most famous Maya kings, Chichen Itza.
Okay, and what's so special about this tomb?
Well, it was discovered deep within the pyramid,
Ah,
and it's just this incredibly elaborate chamber with a massive sarcophagus lid that's covered in these incredibly detailed carvings. It's a real masterpiece of Maya art and architecture. And it shows that they were thinking about more than just the exterior of these buildings. They were creating these complex interior spaces with symbolic and religious significance.
and it's not just the temples and tombs, right?
No, no, they were also incredible astronomers. And they built structures specifically for observing the stars, like El Caracol at Chichen Itza. It's this round building that's often called an observatory because its windows and doorways are lined with certain astronomical events, like the equinoxes and solstices. They can use it to track the movements of the sun and the moon and the planets. It's really quite remarkable.
So we've talked about the divine kings and the incredible cities they built, but who were some of the other key figures in Maya history? Are there any individuals who really stand out?
Oh, definitely. You mentioned Kinich Pakal, the king who was buried in the Temple of the Inscriptions. He's a fascinating figure. He came to the throne at a very young age, only 12 years old, and he ruled for almost 70 years. And during his reign, Palenque experienced this real flourishing of art and architecture. I mean, he was responsible for a lot of the most impressive buildings that we see there today.
So he was like a Maya boy king who grew up to be this great builder.
Yeah, kind of, but it wasn't all about buildings. He was also a skilled warrior and a shrewd politician. He had to be to stay in power for so long in such a competitive environment.
So that's Palenque. What about some of the other city-states?
Well, there's Naranjo, which was ruled by a woman named Lady Six Guy.
Oh, wow. A female ruler. That's pretty rare for the ancient world.
It is, and she was an incredibly powerful and influential figure. She actually wasn't the direct heir to the throne. She came to power through a series of alliances and military victories, and she revitalized Naranjo. She expanded its territory and really made it a major player in the region.
So she was kind of like a Maya warrior queen.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
And her story really challenges our assumptions about the role of women in ancient societies. It shows that they could hold positions of great power and influence.
So we've got these powerful kings and queens, these incredible cities, this advanced knowledge of math and astronomy. But then something happened. What was the classic Maya collapse? What caused these great cities in the south to be abandoned?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there's no easy answer. There are a lot of theories, and there's probably a combination of factors that led to the collapse.
Okay, so what are some of the main theories?
Well, one is overpopulation. As the population grew, it put a strain on resources, especially farmland.
Right, especially if they were having to feed all those people building the pyramids.
Exactly. And then you had increased warfare between the city-states. They were always
Yeah.
competing for resources and territory. And as the pressure grew, those conflicts probably became more intense and more destructive.
It's like a resource war almost.
Yeah. And on top of that, you had climate change. There's evidence that there were prolonged droughts in the 8th and 9th centuries, and that would have had a devastating impact on agriculture.
So you've got overpopulation, warfare, and climate change. Kind of sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I think that's part of why the Maya collapse is so fascinating to us. It shows how even a sophisticated civilization can be vulnerable to these kinds of pressures.
It's a cautionary tale, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to talk about one more thing.
The ball game.
Ah, yes. Pocatello.
Pocatello. That sounds pretty intense.
It was. It was more than just a game. It was a ritual, a religious ceremony. They played it with this heavy rubber ball, and they had to pass it through a stone hoop using only their hips, elbows, and knees.
So no hands.
No hands.
That sounds really hard.
It was. And the games could be really violent. Players often got injured, sometimes even killed.
Oh, wow.
And there's evidence that the losers, and sometimes even the winners, were sacrificed to the gods.
So it wasn't just about bragging rights.
No, it was deeply connected to their beliefs about the cosmos, about life and death, about the role of humans in the universe.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from pyramids to the concept of zero to the ball game. What's the main thing you want our listeners to take away from this deep dive into the Maya?
Well, I think it's the fact that the Maya were more than just an ancient civilization. They were a complex and sophisticated society that achieved incredible things. They had a deep understanding of the world around them, and they created a culture that was both beautiful and profound.
They were artists, scientists, engineers, astronomers.
Yeah, and their story is still relevant to us today. It reminds us of the power of human ingenuity, but also of the challenges that all civilizations face.
And the importance of understanding those challenges and learning
Yeah.
from the past.
Ex-
So to our listeners, if you find yourselves gazing up at the stars or marveling at a feat of engineering, remember the Maya.
Yeah.
Their legacy lives on not just in the ruins they left behind, but in the questions they inspire us to ask about ourselves and our place in the world. And maybe, just maybe, by studying their rise and fall, we can gain some insights into how to create a more sustainable and just future for ourselves. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.